This is Rob Tebbutt from Behind the Gloves. I'm here with very sharp-looking Eddie Hearn.
It's a bit pimpy, isn't it?
It looks good.
You know?
I was just saying that you and Frank Smith look like a couple of KGB boys.
Yes, I know.
Looking sharp.
Thank you.
So we're here today at the Katie Taylor, Jess McCaskill press conference.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel the press conference went?
Went good. I mean, get a lot of questions. You know, how do you think this is a defining moment for women's boxing? And I don't know whether it's just me, but I don't look at it like that. I don't see this as men's boxing, women's boxing. I just see this as boxing. I see this as one of the biggest stars in world boxing, in Katie Taylor, defending her world title. Yes, she's a woman, and this isn't about, I'm not the most PC guy in the world. This isn't about equal rights or, women's power. It's just that she's a great fighter. And as Bruno Mars said, if you don't believe me, just watch. That was a bit cheesy, but I did say it earlier. But it's the truth. Every time she's boxed on our platform, everyone's walked away going, I loved it. I mean, Cardiff was a great example. People felt like it was the fight of the night. The whole place erupted for her. So I see her as a star. So I'm excited to end the year with a massive show at York Hall, and I love York Hall. And I said to someone in another interview, I'm almost more excited for this than some of the major event shows or stadium shows, because it's the bread and butter stuff. The atmosphere is going to be great. So much young talent leaping into 2018 that's going to get thrown in the deep end to see if they are the stars that we think they are. And I'm really excited for Wednesday.
Now, something you alluded to in the press conference is sort of like a bit of a bonus, this show. We've added some fighters to the bill that weren't necessarily.
Yeah, well, obviously the Hay Bellew card fell through. So a lot of the stars from that show, Josh Kelly particularly, who's in a 10-round fight on the card, Conor Benn as well, and we're starting at 5 p.m. and probably end about midnight. But it's important to get these guys out and to give them the progression they need, because like I said, Lawrence Okolie, Joe Cordina, Conor Benn, Josh Kelly, Ted Cheeseman, they're all sinking or swimming in 2018. So this is like the end of their graduation before they jump in, and it's just a case of how deep they jump in. And some are going to go very deep and some are going to go a little bit slower than others. But I'm really excited by the crop of talent that we've got moving forward next year.
I just want to touch on Josh Kelly, because obviously he wasn't here today. Why was that?
No, because he couldn't get it with Adam Booth. Two of their trains got cancelled from Surrey, so they couldn't make it. And then they got in the car, and then it was like 90 minutes, and the press conference started in half an hour. And just said, look, just leave it. So, but he's a very important part of our plans, and he has his first 10-round contest against a guy who's fought for the European title. And Josh Kelly could be one of those guys. He has almost sort of Lomachenko style skills. Lomachenko is a genius, but so is Josh Kelly. But if you watch him, I think every time he's stepped up, although small levels at the moment, his performance has stepped up as well. And I'm hoping that's going to be the case as we continue to progress with Josh Kelly. So Adam Booth is so hyped for Josh Kelly. He, as far as he's concerned, after Wednesday, it's British, Commonwealth, European titles straight away. And that's exciting for me, because it's almost like the build phase is going to be 5 fights rather than 15 fights. And he may be right. He may have something very, very special there. And you're seeing it all unfold in the early stages here at York Hall. It's probably the last time you'll see him on an undercard. So, I'm very excited about Josh Kelly.
What's it like having, obviously you move fighters, I'm just going to use Conor Benn as an example, relatively similar weights, or they're similar weights. How difficult is it to match or find the right fights for yourself and Adam Booth for Josh Kelly, somebody who's such a precocious talent who looks like he's ready to step up through the levels? He's already fighting a 10-rounder.
Yeah, it all depends really on the training team and the man. Despite people thinking that the promoter calls all the shots, not really. Conor Benn had, 12 amateur fights, 13 amateur fights in Australia in sort of smaller environments. Josh Kelly had over 100 amateur fights all around the world. So he's obviously going to progress a lot quicker than Conor Benn is. With Josh Kelly, Adam Booth is like the fighters. We reached out for Ashley Theophane. We reached out to the European champion Mimoun. These are where we want to go in 2018. So he's going well beyond. The other guys, Cheeseman, he's going to fight JJ Metcalf for the British title. Good fight, tough fight. Conor Benn's going to be stepped up to sort of area and English level in early 2018. Okolie hopefully fights Chamberlain. They're gambling. So these guys, they're all going to be gambling. And we hope that they're good enough to go on. Joe Cordina, another exceptional talent in the lightweight division. So really, they're all going to be given the opportunity to progress, not too fast, at the speed they'd like to be progressed, because we don't choose how fast they progress. The trainer will say to us, or the manager will say, we want to step up now, what about this guy? And we'll put forward loads of guys, and ultimately they tell us which ones they want to fight.
Sort of reminds me a little bit of the card that was last year around the same time when Katie Taylor actually made her debut. It was at Wembley Arena where we had Ahara Davis versus Andrea Scarpa.
Jake Ball lost that night as well. Ben Hall against Carson Jones.
It's kind of like it's sort of like a yearly graduation thing going just before Christmas. So does that to kickstart them into the new year?
Not really. I think it just worked out that way. I mean, obviously we're synonymous now with going to bigger stadiums, and this was at York Hall because we had the Hay Bellew card at the O2 on the Sunday. So obviously with Josh and Conor Ben adding, it's really outgrown the York Hall, but it's fine. It'll be a great atmosphere in there. I love the York Hall personally. It's more about putting people in position to challenge in 2018. But that's the bottom end of the card. On the top end of the card, you've got Katie Taylor defending her world title. You've got Martin Ward. Now, Martin Ward really, I think, has gone under the radar a little bit. He's won the British title outright against some horrible stylistic opponents. I mean, Ronnie Clark, Kakachi, Maxie Hughes, all tough sort of technicians. Now he's fighting for the European title. So he'll be the British Commonwealth European title champion if he can win. It's a great achievement. Jake Ball against Miles Shinkwin is a really, really good fight to see if those guys can step up to the domestic level in a good division. So, you've got big championship fights as well, mixed in with the real future of British boxing. So it's important on many levels, but particularly for Katie, because obviously it's a chance for her to go out and just to continue this great journey.
I just want to backtrack a little bit. Obviously, Lawrence Okolie is on the card. Isaac Chamberlain was also supposed to be on the card. He's now not on the card. What can you tell us about that?
He was injured. I think he just had a little injury in the rib, so didn't want to fight on the card. And listen, hopefully they fight on February the 3rd. Unfortunately, it's very difficult when you're representing two guys. So I wanted to be fair. I made them the same offer. Lawrence accepted his offer, and as of yet, Isaac's team haven't. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe they think the fight's bigger than it is. But hopefully he will accept the fight, because I think it's a good fight. I think the offer's fair. Sometimes people get in these fighters' ears who have absolutely no understanding of what a fight is worth. Now, I've heard people say to me, that fight sells out the O2. It really doesn't. It sells out York Hall. Do you know what I mean? And it's a really good chief support on a Saturday night fight night. So that's the kind of levels that we're talking about financially. But it's, I don't know, multiple times bigger than any purse they've earned so far, and it's a 10-round fight. And both of them can come again if they lose. But like I said, Lawrence has accepted. I think Isaac, I'm not saying Isaac doesn't want to accept, but the people who are talking on his behalf don't want to accept the fight right now. And hopefully that will change this week.
Is that the timescale for the fight being made around this week? No,
but it starts becoming hard, because what will happen is if Isaac doesn't want to fight him, then Lawrence will fight Luke Watkins or for a title, and then the dynamic changes completely. Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden it's a voluntary defence of a title, and he now wants X, and he should get less. Do you know what I mean? So these big fights are all about timing, and this is the right time to make this fight. But it's just down to the fighters whether they want it or not. And fighters always want the fights. It's just whether their team truly believe that they can win the fight.
So obviously the date that was mooted for that was February the 3rd. Do you have any update on what could potentially be topping that bill? I know there was
it's Dillian Whyte. Yeah, Dillian Whyte will top the bill, and we need to make that announcement this week. We want the Lucas Brown fight, but Lucas Brown's waiting on Joseph Parker, so hopefully that will be resolved this week as well. I don't know whether Lucas Brown really wants the fight. It's bizarre if he doesn't, because I don't know what else he's going to do. Ajit Kayabal is another guy we might be looking at who beat Chisora. Dylan will fight anyone. Hughie Fury says he wanted the fight, but I spoke to Peter last night, he's not ready till April. So Dylan will headline on February the 3rd, but we need to get it moving this week. And we hope that Okolie-Chamberlain will be a chief support on that card. Ahara Davis will be fighting on that card as well, Reece Bellotti, and a lot of the younger kids as well.
Is it frustrating for Dillian? Because I know he's
it's very hard to match, and it's not through a lack of trying, a lack of money. It's just that, I was hoping that the Hellenius performance, which wasn't his best, would make people fancy that fight a little bit more. And I think it has made a few, but when you look at the level of opposition that we're looking to fight, there's not many in the category. Do Do you know what I mean? Brazil, Brown, you know, other than that, there's not bundles and bundles of opposition. So it's difficult because to headline we want a big fight or a fight that's going to create interest, and outside of that there's other good fights for him but not quite at O2 level.
What, Manuel Shah? Just picks up the WBA
Yeah,
regular?
again, but he's now sitting there wanting a payday. He's got a WBA regular title, thinks, right, who's the highest bidder? And, you know, the problem is with that title, it's not really going to progress you anywhere, and it will take him out of the world rankings for the other governing bodies. He's number 1 with the WBA, he's about 4 with the IBF, he's about 6 with the WBA, top 8 with the WBO. So if he fights for that title, he's going to lose all his other world rankings, so it doesn't really make sense.
What update can you give us on Deontay Wilder? I know we'll move on to Anthony Joshua soon, but obviously Deontay Wilder holds the WBC. Dillian, as you've just mentioned, is number 1 with the WBC. Do you have any update on Deontay Wilder's situation? Or?
No, he doesn't. Wilder doesn't want the Whyte fight, and despite them saying if we get the Joshua fight, we'll have the Whyte fight, that's not true. In terms of Dillian's position with the WBC, he's number 1. He's not mandatory yet because it hasn't been called, but he will be eventual mandatory. And Wilder doesn't want the Joshua fight. I mean, he says it's 50-50 or no fight, which basically means you don't want the fight because you can't possibly, however big your ego is, you have enough sense to know that you do not deserve 50% in that fight against AJ. So if he really wanted the fight, he would, he'd be more realistic. Hopefully we make the Parker fight. It's close now. We're not there yet, but I think it's the right fight for both guys. Puts us in a position, I believe, Joshua wins that fight, gives him all the belts but 1, and then hopefully Wilder comes to his senses and realises that that's the only fight out there for him that can generate more than, you know, the couple of million that he's earning per fight.
When people talk about Wilder being the champion, if Anthony Joshua does fight Joseph Parker and wins and picks up another belt, does that strengthen your negotiating position?
Yeah, it does, but it all comes down to whether he really wants to fight. I think that Wilder's using Joshua's name to give himself profile. Smart, I'd do the same thing if I was Wilder. But he can't really want the fight if that's what he truly believes. Because ask one fan, ask one person in the game whether he should get 50-50 in that fight, and the answer is no. So what? Everyone's mad except Deontay Wilder? No. But listen, like I said, we got to carry on with our business. Anthony wants to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. To do that, we've got to beat the champions, and we'll probably have to overpay Deontay Wilder, like we're having to overpay Joseph Parker. That's just how it is.
The last time one of our guys caught up with you was in New York, and it seemed to me like there was some progress going on with the Wilder fight. I mean, what happened? It's sort of gone cold?
Nothing really. We had an initial chat, and it went all right. We didn't really talk about splits, and then Wilder came out in the media and said, unless it's 50-50, there's no fight. So it just automatically, after we had a good laugh, we just sort of said, okay, park that one for now. Let's go and plan our next fight in March. I think Wilder will fight Ortiz. You know, he may lose that fight. But it's a good fight for Wilder because I think he needs a fight like that. And listen, if he fights Ortiz and beats him, he does give himself more value in that fight. But again, if we pick up a belt and go in with 3-belt champion against a 1-belt, then that changes that as well. But our focus is not Wilder at the moment because he's not serious and he's not real.
Moving on to Anthony Joshua, I've just actually seen he's been smashing windows in Amsterdam.
In the Under Armour opening of the Under Armour shop in Amsterdam.
How is he other than that?
He's good. He's itching to get back into camp. You know, AJ's one of those guys where he sort of has his break but he's always thinking. He's always thinking about how to improve, what he can change in camp. And he's already in camp, really. I mean, he's ticking over. His weight's nice and low. You know, I think there is a feeling that he was too heavy in that fight and again in the fight before. So that's something that he's addressing, and he feels like he took a lot out of the Takam fight. And, you know, hopefully by the end of 2017, his next fight will be signed and camp will start for real on the 1st of Jan.
And the fight with Joseph Parker, is that the only fight you're working on for Anthony Joshua?
No, it's not. I mean, we've got other fights in position, but that's the fight that I think makes sense for AJ and for Parker. It's a huge payday for Parker. And if they think they can win, then he becomes the biggest star in world boxing, Joseph Parker. In his next fight, he'll make $15 million or whatever. So I'm hoping that fight gets over the line. We've got a little bit of work to do, but looking at that potentially March the 31st.
How's your relationship with David Higgins?
He's all right. I quite like David. He's absolutely bonkers. But, you know, there's a method to his madness. I mean, they're making plenty of noise. There is now a lot more interest in the fight. The press conference will be highly entertaining. But as I said in one of my Sky pieces, he is off his Swede. But he's got a job to do. You know, he's trying to get the most amount of money for a guy who he's been involved with, who he's got to world championship status. And they're not just going to give it up for nothing. But I believe we're at a point that's fair. They don't quite, but we've been compromising. They've compromised a little bit. We've got to just find some middle ground, and then I think the fight will get made.
Is it frustrating for you having that, you know, having that golden goose, as it were, and people wanting?
Yeah, but that's just the way it is. Like I said before, he's like Willy Wonka's golden ticket, Anthony Joshua. He's the creme de la creme. He's the payday that all these guys want. So, and you know, Parker's a world champion. He's not just going to roll over and give his belt up. But if he comes back to, if he really believes he can win the fight, he shouldn't be worrying about a couple of percent, because ultimately this is going to set him up for life. Just this fight alone. If he wins, he's cracked it. And you know, it's a good fight between two undefeated, you know, fast, big punching heavyweights.
Now, just moving on, what's the situation with Whyte? Obviously, Tom Loeffler has announced that this is a Superfly 2.
We got an offer to fight Roman Gonzalez, which we were up for that fight. Then Roman Gonzalez wasn't fighting. Then we got offered the Inoue fight, which I said, we'll take that fight, but you better pay up, because that's a tough fight. And I'll get a load of stick, you know, people saying, I'm probably a little bit too honest. You know, people talk about the Ryan Burnett-Tete fight, and what fans have to understand is, this is not a game. This ain't a game of tennis. This is a fight where you put your health, your career on the line. I'm not going to let Ryan Burnett go in with Tete unless the deal's right for Ryan Burnett. I'm not going to let Whyte go in with Inoue unless the deal's right for Whyte. I'm sorry if that makes me Dr. Evil, but you can have your opinions, but this is a tough sport. And you see fighters time and time again, you know, being in tough fights, getting injured, all kinds of things. So don't think that it's just a game that you can just throw a fighter into for a couple of quid because you want it. You know, we've got to do the right thing for these guys. So Inoue now looks like he might be moving up to bantamweight, apparently. So we're now asked to fight someone else on the Superfly card, which we're very interested to do. We're talking to Tom Loeffler and Peter Nelson, and there is a good chance that Whyte will be on the February 24th card in LA.
What do you say to people, or fans, who point to the situation with Whyte and Inoue and then contrast it to Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua? Two situations that, while not identical, are somewhat similar. I mean, what would you say to those fans?
In what respect? Like, how do they?
In the respect of Whyte not facing Inoue because perhaps the deal isn't right, and you know it's a very risky fight. Do you see similarities in perhaps how David Higgins feels?
But I think when you break it down, you know, you have a guy. So when you look at Whyte may earn X, he can earn 30% more than X to fight Inoue. It's risk versus reward. Joseph Parker can earn 5x to fight Anthony Joshua. So he's earning 5 times as much money potentially to fight Joseph Parker. That means the risk is worth the reward. For Cal, why would you choose that fight? It's a bit like Joshua against Wilder. If there's $50 million in that fight and Wilder wants 25 million, that's not far off what AJ would make in a Takam fight. So how does that make sense? Yet Wilder is making 10 times in that fight what he's ever made before, you know, and that's the same with Whyte. If you want to pay Whyte double the money that he's earning at the moment to fight Inoue, no problem. But I can't allow a fighter just because I go, oh, you know what, Whyte Inoue, well, that's a great fight, or I look at my social media and people are saying to me, that's a great fight. Why don't you put him in that fight? What's the matter with you? I'd be a tit, wouldn't I? I mean, I'd just be. What's the point in me being a promoter and advising people's career if we're going to make bad moves? They want the fights. Burnett wants to fight Tete, but I ain't letting him do it for the same money that he got, or probably less to fight Zakianov. Same with Whyte. I'm not letting him fight Inoue unless he's getting paid well. And it's all very well sitting at home saying, "Oh, you got to put him in these fights." You're not the one going in there, going through camp, getting punched in the head against super elite fighters, and you're putting your career, your belt, your health on the line. So we got to get what these fighters deserve. That's my job.
I'm just staying with Ryan Burnett. Did you see the Zolani-Tete fight, all 11 seconds?
Yeah, I saw the knockout. Yeah, Tete's a brilliant fighter. Burnett wants the Tete fight. He wants to win every belt. But I can't, you know, when I go back to Ryan Burnett and Adam Booth and say, right, these are the options. bomb. It's not a case of having a poor fight, but it's just a case of if it's risk-reward. If it's a tough fight, you should get paid more money. You know, just like going to work every day. If you're in a tough job that demands a lot of work and is very difficult, you should be getting more money than you should be doing for an easier job. You know? And at the moment, those numbers aren't, and same with Cal. So, like, when I speak to the fighter, Cal, do you want to fight a new one? Oh, I'd love that fight. I think he's the best out there. That's the fighter's response. Ryan, do you think you're right? Yeah, you know what? People are doubting me about Tete. I'll beat Tete. But fighters need to be protected from themselves. That's why you have people looking after them. And I don't mind being a fall guy, but I will tell you the truth. I'll tell you how it is every single time. And if you don't understand that, you're an idiot or you're naive. I'm sorry, but I know we all want to see great fights and we want to see the best be the best. But they've got to be taken care of, these fighters. This is a hot, tough, dangerous sport. And when you're in dangerous fights, you've got to make dangerous money.
Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the rescheduling of Tony Bellew versus David Haye. Bellew-Haye 2.
Correct, not Haye Bellew, yeah.
Despite some of the posts
Yes, I see, yeah.
How relieved are you to get that fight?
I'm relieved. I mean, look, we probably could have done it end of March, early April, but AJ's going end of March. O2 was available for May the 5th as well. Yeah, we're in a position, we looked at the Tyson Fury fight, we spoke to him. You've got one guy in David Haye who's obviously injured, but he's extremely motivated mentally to get back in the ring. And then you've got Tyson Fury who seems to have more barriers in the way than David Haye did. So the route is David Haye on May the 5th, and then hopefully the Tyson Fury fight in the back end of the year for Tony Bellew, and that would be a great 2018.
Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Yes, potentially on the same day as GGG against Canelo. So yeah, I think May the 5th will be a big night of boxing.
What can you tell us about Tyson Fury? Obviously, he's got his hearing is today. Is it?
Apparently, I'm not involved in the hearing. The only talks we've had has been around the Tony Bellew fight. So, listen, I want to see him back in the ring, as does everyone. I want to make the Anthony Joshua fight. It's the biggest fight in world boxing, biggest fight in British boxing history. But he needs to get back in the ring, and if he does, I believe that fight can get made.
He's obviously just signed with MTK, one of the most powerful promotional managerial companies in world boxing. How important is that for Tyson Fury?
Well, he needs help and he needs guidance, and I think MTK can give him that. You know, I've had chats with them about it since he's signed with them as well. They're looking after a huge amount of fighters right now. But like I said, he needs the guide. You can't do these things on your own. So now he's working with a team that can give him that guidance and obviously sieve through the problems and make sure there's a clear path for him to go and perform.
Now, I thought, are we hearing an announcement about Kell Brook today?
Today, yeah, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we still got some time,
Yeah.
unless you want to give me the exclusive on the...
Well, unless you don't put it out till 3 o'clock.
I'll put it out at 3 o'clock.
Okay, he's fighting Sergey Rabchenko on March the 3rd at Sheffield Arena at £154. It's a little bit more lively opponent than I would have suggested, but I think Kell is at that stage where he wants a proper fight. You know, he doesn't want to come back in a gimme fight. Rabchenko's obviously won European titles, had some decent world level fights. He's a tough come forward puncher that I think is going to give us a good understanding of where Kell is in the division. So yeah, March the 3rd, Sky Sports. Looking forward to it.
How important do you think it's going to be for Kell Brook to make the return at £154? I know he's had well-documented weight issues, or he's struggled to get to the weight.
It's always a struggle to make 140. I mean, people don't see... Now, when he turned up at that weigh-in, I know Kell Brook very well, and it was a big struggle, but he wasn't going to give that belt up. You know, the defeat hurt him badly emotionally because people talk about, he quit in that fight. Watch the 10th round when his eye socket was smashed. He was going for it and he was taking punishment, and in the end, now when you've had that injury before and you've been told you can lose your sight, there's no special awards for bravery, mate. I mean, he was brave enough. He went beyond the call of duty in that fight. But it hurt him losing that fight in front of his own people. And it took him a long time. I wouldn't say he went into depression, but he was very low for a long time following that fight. And only recently has he now got the bit back between his teeth, wants to regain his world title, wants to come out, wants to fill the arena, wants to put in a great performance. And that's what he's training for now for Rabchenko.
We were actually with Kell Brook about 4 or 5 weeks ago at the Ingle gym.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
It was very good, very good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and he was kind of undecided as to where he was coming back. Was there ever any serious consideration as to staying at welterweight?
I think he looks at welterweight, and you look at the fights at welterweight, and perhaps they're more attractive. But I forget that. You know, you have to be where you're at your best and he will be at his best at 154 pounds. So I think you're going to see a great Kell Brook at light middle. I believe Kell Brook's one of the best fighters in the world. I have done for a long time. And I believe at light middle you're going to see him with the engine, with the speed, with the power. You know, he's hurting people badly in sparring, weighing 11 stone 6, you know, around that weight. And then he's boiling down to welter, and he doesn't seem to be carrying that power at welterweight. I think he'll have great power at light middle. It's a tough division with some great champions, but he wants to regain that world title. So first things first, a very tough fight against Rabchenko on March the 3rd.
Seems to me like a division. I mean, we talk about risk reward in the other areas.
Good example. Yeah,
it's a fantastic division. Really
with no big fights. You know, that's the thing. You got Lara, you got Charlo, you got Hearn, you got Saddam Ali now, which is probably the best fight to look at. Who is also good, by the way. People just think, oh, he's the easy touch in the division. He's a good fighter. But if you want to win a world title, you've got to fight those guys. So, you know, it isn't a division littered with big fights and big paydays. That's one of the reasons he decided to stay in at welterweight and defend his belt. But ultimately, over time, he could be the star of the 154-pound division. So, you know, first things first, get that win on March the 3rd and then move on.
Does that now put pay to the Amir Khan fight?
Not necessarily. I mean, is there a catchweight opportunity? You know, does Amir want to fight at 154? I don't know. But both guys need to get back in the ring first. That's the, you know, get that win. And then, you know, potentially we can look at that fight for the back end of 2018.
Yeah, now, this past weekend, I was, unfortunately for you, I was at the Frank Warren show.
Oh, yes. Or unfortunately for you.
Well,
joking.
It's not very nice, is it? James Degale
Yes.
surrendered his IBF super middleweight title. Did you catch the fight?
I haven't seen the fight. I've seen some highlights of the fight. Gutted for James. You know, a lot of people putting the knife in. I'm not one of them. I class him as a friend. I think he's... I can't agree with every decision he's made in his boxing career, but, you know, one of the worst things you can be in boxing is a free agent, because no one's looking out for you. No one's got your back. No one's providing a strategy or a path for you. How can you possibly go into a voluntary defence like that without a rematch clause? It just baffles me. You know, who is in charge? Who is making these decisions? And, you know, that's the first thing. The second thing is it was a poor performance, and he knows that. He shouldn't be losing to people like Caleb Truex. You know, James is a quality fighter. But I don't know, was it a bad night? Is it too many miles on the clock? Was it just a bad performance? I don't know, loads of things. But I'm not sure you'll see him fight again. Once the desire goes, sometimes you're better off calling it a day. And now for James, it's all about desire. If he feels that in his heart to win his world title back. If he does, he should carry on. But if he doesn't, you know, he's now got no rematch clause. He's going to get a very poor offer for his next fight. I know James. He will look at it and think, are you joking me? And that might be it. So unless he has the desire to come back, then I think that'll be it for James Degale.
I spoke to Frank Warren after the fight. Obviously signed on a fight-by-fight deal. Now Frank has said that he's interested in working with James in the future. Is that an opinion that you share?
What, would I work with James? Yeah, but you know, how disappointed was Frank Warren when that result was read out? Let me tell you, not very disappointed. They were in a legal dispute a couple of years ago. So, but you've got, you know, loyalty is key. And if I feel like you're loyal with me and we're sharing something together, we're sharing a journey together, we're all on the same page, I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can to look after you. If I don't, yeah, I'm still going to try, but it's not the, you know, do you know what I mean? So, would we work with James Degale? Yes, I've always said we'd work with James Degale. The hardest thing for James is when he sees what's out there for him now. And the only way he's going to fight again is if he truly wants to return, if he truly wants to win a world title fight, if he truly wants to prove people wrong again. If he doesn't, financially, he's not going to bother. So yeah, you know, I class James as a friend, and it's disappointing to see his career just landslide. And again, if he would have just stayed in the UK after he beat Durrell, he would have been a pay-per-view star. He would have earned 5 times what he's earned. But he had this mentality that he could go to America and be this huge star. It doesn't exist. And now he ends up coming back in Copper Box with, what, 4,000, 5,000 people headlining his homecoming fight. And with another world title, Lee Selby on the card. It was just a damp squib. And then you go and lose and it's all over. And your team haven't even got a rematch clause. Caleb Truex would have signed a rematch clause in a nanosecond. They can't believe their luck. That's why you've got to have people watching your back.
Now, speaking of going over to America, you've been over to America yourself. Any idea on when you'll be returning?
We'll be back in April. with Daniel Jacobs, Gerald Miller and others. Yeah, so that's our next one in America, just planning our early part of the calendar for 2018 now, and that's the job during this Christmas period.
Where are you looking to take Jacobs? Obviously
we'll be in Brooklyn. Yeah, we was a little bit out of the way last time in Long Island, but we'll be at the Barclays Centre for the next one.
Okay, and just finally, I don't know if you stayed up to watch Vasyl Lomachenko versus Guillermo Rigondeaux.
No, glad I didn't.
Have you seen the fight since?
No, I saw some highlights, but we should have probably known it was going to, like, the two, like, Lomachenko is brilliant. Brilliant. Rigondeaux is also outstanding. But I suppose it's sometimes hindsight, isn't it, when you think it was always going to be like that, wasn't it? Messy and skillful holding, but Rigondeaux just got outfoxed and looked like he just gave up, really. I mean, I haven't seen the fight, but that's what I tend to hear. But Lomachenko's so good, he's going to have to just go up and just keep going up until he just becomes too small. And like Rigondeaux's a bantamweight, really. He looked tiny, didn't he? But disappointing from Rigondeaux. I mean, didn't exactly put it on the line, did he?
No, I mean, how difficult do you think it's going to be for Rigondeaux to come back from that? Obviously, he's promotional.
I think, listen, no one wanted to give him a fight anyway. Now he's got the fight and he's performed like that. He's, I mean, not done, but again, it's a Degale thing where you come back and you say, yeah, no problem. There's $50,000 for your next fight. Hey, I think that's the potentially the last you'll see of Rigondeaux.
Stephen Smith was also in action stateside.
Yeah, terrible injury. Yeah, I spoke to him yesterday.
Could he hear you?
He was. He started too slow, but he was coming back into the fight and actually had some good points in the fight. And HBO loved the fight. The injury was just a weird one, but he'll be back. He's sewn up and actually looks fine now, ironically. And one eye on Martin Ward against Gina on Wednesday, because Ward against Smith for the British Commonwealth and European titles could be an interesting one for 2018.
Okay, well, Eddie Hearn, I appreciate your time.
No problem.
I know you're desperate to run off and play Crystal Maze.
Christmas office party today, so let's get the beers in.
Thanks very much for your time. Mate. As always, pleasure, Eddie Hearn.
See you later, mate.
Thanks very much.
Hey, fight fans, it's Michelle Joy Phelps, and if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you go ahead and do so by clicking right here.